There is a photograph taken in 1998 that most people have never seen. It sits in the archive of the Institut Européen d'Archéologie Sous-Marine, catalogued under Expedition Reference IEAS-M 96AL07. In it, you can see the seafloor roughly 6 meters below the surface of the eastern harbor of Alexandria, Egypt. There are columns. There are cut granite blocks the size of cars. And there, partially obscured by sediment, is a carved threshold, a doorway, still standing upright, still intact, leading into what appears to be a sealed interior chamber. Most people walk right past it. The published reports focus on the statues, the sphinxes, the coins. But hidden inside that photograph is something that shouldn't exist. Because according to every mainstream historical account, that building was destroyed in the 1st century. Not submerged, not buried, destroyed. So why does it still have a door? This is not a myth, not a metaphor. This is Catalog Structure 14C, documented by French marine archaeologist Franck Goddio's team during the 1996 to 2000 survey of the sunken royal quarter of ancient Alexandria. And what they found in and around that structure quietly rewrote what we thought we knew about the final days of one of the most powerful cities in human history. If this kind of buried investigation is what you're looking for, subscribe right now. We go deep on the things the textbooks leave out. Here's the context. In 1996, Goddio's team began systematic underwater mapping of Alexandria's eastern harbor using side-scan sonar, sub-bottom profilers, and GPS positioning, technology that hadn't existed a decade earlier. What they found was staggering. The entire royal quarter of ancient Alexandria, the palace complex of Cleopatra, the ceremonial docks, the temple of Poseidon, the island of Antirrhodos, had not been looted or burned. It had sunk, slowly, catastrophically, over several centuries, due to a combination of earthquakes, subsidence, and rising sea levels. The city didn't fall. It went under. But here's where it gets strange. The ancient sources describe this process. They always have. Scholars simply read those descriptions as poetic exaggeration. The Roman historian Ammianus Marcellinus wrote of Alexandria that the sea returned what the earth had swallowed. The Egyptian priest Manetho, writing centuries earlier, described a temple whose threshold touched the deep, yet whose fires still burned. For decades, scholars dismissed it as symbolic. Temple fires as a metaphor for divine endurance. Sacred language, nothing more. Then, modern science found something that changed everything. When Goddio's sonar mapped Structure 14C, the building with the intact doorway, the sub-bottom profiler revealed something the photograph alone couldn't show. Behind that threshold, under approximately 40 centimeters of compacted sediment, was an enclosed space roughly 11 meters by 7 meters. A room, sealed by collapse on 3 sides, but structurally intact on the 4th. And from within that sealed space, the chemical sensor array detected trace concentrations of natron, cedarwood resin, and myrrh, the 3 compounds used in one specific ancient Egyptian process. Not storage, not trade. Ritual preservation. The mainstream interpretation was that the structure was a secondary ceremonial annex to the larger Temple of Poseidon complex, likely used for votive offerings. Reasonable? Defensible. But that explanation has a problem. The compound signature inside that sealed room matches, almost precisely, the chemical profile found inside intact embalming chambers at the Valley of the Kings. Not similar, not inspired by it, the same. Now, what would an embalming chamber be doing inside a temple complex on a harbor island? That question sent researchers back to the ancient sources. And there, buried in a fragment of Plutarch's lost biography of Mark Antony, preserved only in a Byzantine summary, is a single line that had never received serious attention. It reads, And so the body was carried not to the desert, as was custom, but to the house that stands where the land meets the sea, and there it was sealed as the priests commanded, so that no Roman hand would find it. They weren't guessing. They were recording. The implication is almost too significant to say plainly, but we'll say it anyway. What Goddio's team may have found, sealed under 6 meters of harbor water for 2,000 years, is the location of a ritual chamber connected to what ancient sources consistently describe as one of the most carefully hidden burials in antiquity. A body that Rome wanted and never found. A burial that the ancient priests concealed not in the desert, where every tomb eventually gets opened, but underwater, where no one would think to look, and where the sea itself would become the seal. Now, does this prove the most extreme version of the story? Probably not. The chemical traces are compelling, but not conclusive. The Plutarch fragment is fragmentary for a reason. It's a summary of a summary. And the sealed chamber has not been entered. But that doesn't make the discovery ordinary. Even in the most conservative reading, this structure represents an intact, sealed, chemically active ceremonial space inside the drowned royal quarter of Alexandria. A quarter that has been accessible for 30 years and has never been fully excavated. Here's where the story gets its most uncomfortable dimension. In 2003, the Egyptian Supreme Council of Antiquities issued a set of excavation restrictions on the Eastern Harbor site that effectively paused all interior access work on submerged structures. The official reason cited: marine preservation concerns. The IEASM team filed for renewed interior access permits in 2004, 2007, and again in 2011. Each application was received. None was approved. The 1998 photograph sits in an archive. The sealed chamber sits on the seafloor, and the threshold, that intact stone doorway, still standing after 2,000 years, has not been crossed. And if that's true, if what the chemical data and the ancient fragments are pointing toward is real, it means our history is missing a chapter. Not a small one, the final chapter of the Ptolemaic world. The one where the priests made a choice. Let Rome have the city, but not what the city held most sacred. The door is still there, still sealed, still 6 meters underwater, 11 nautical miles from a major international airport, in a harbor you can see from Google Earth right now. Nobody has opened it. If this investigation stays with you, hit like and subscribe, and watch the next video on the lost tomb of Alexander, because the two stories connect in ways the mainstream has never put together in one place.